Just getting my cup of tea. Tea time. I'm going to put a tiny bit of honey in it. I hope everyone is well. Just getting my tea ready. So I've done everything I wanted to do. I still have to walk the dogs though. I've done a walk, I've done a run, I've done my weightlifting. I've had some dinner, pork chops, chicken and eggs. And now I'm going to have a tea, and then I'm going to walk, after I finish with you guys, I'm going to walk the dogs. Now I'm expecting the grandmother to come and collect some stuff. So when the grandmother comes, the dogs are going to bark their heads off. So there will be some noise at some point. Right, so I've got a nice cup of tea. I hope you guys have got a cup of tea. Okay. Right, I don't know why I'm a bit snivelly today. I don't really know why. That car? No. So, look what I've been watching. Look. Mike Stone. Hi, Jane. Hi, Teresa. Now, what I do, let's spend it. Actually, no, we're about right on the height, aren't we? So what I do, let's just get things ready. What I do, guys, is when I do the dog walk, because the dog walk takes me nearly an hour, I watch videos. When I do a run, just face this to me a bit. It's all psychological. It feels better. When I do a run, I watch a video that I'm going to watch, that I want to do a talk over with. When I do I do a 1.5 mile walk as well, and I tend to do it at least twice a day. Yesterday I did it 4 times. But I watch videos. So I have watched the Piers Morgan interview. I've watched the Barbara Walters interview. I've watched the Mike Stone interview. And then I watched something else. Where is it? Someone sent me a very strange video. I think it may have been Vivek's. Was it Vivek's? Oh, I can't remember. So I watched so Vivek sent me 2 videos. There's one video that I just thought was bizarre. You know, this conspiracy theory that they say he was alive, and also to do with his death. It's just some of them really go over the top, yeah? But what amazes me is the people that involve themselves. Yeah? The people that I found a very weird video, and I'm going to show you some clips of it. And this one's got Ginger Alden in it. So anyway, in case you don't know, guys, it's Louis at Defending Elvis Presley. Fans want the truth. I'm 57. I'm a lifelong Elvis fan. I'm in Southwest UK. I've been a fan for over 50 years. And we, with Team Elvis, defend Elvis Presley every day. We try and do 2 lives a day at least. Today, I've got a feeling it could be 3. So, I've got a few topics. Now, I want to bring up Dr. Nick. I want to bring up Mike Stone. I want to bring up Barbara Walters. I want to bring up Priscilla. But you know what happens in the end? We go on a tangent and we end up doing something different. But it doesn't matter because I still enjoy it. Linda, you're getting a new bed being delivered. Okay, Linda, we'll see you a bit later. I may do one more. I don't know. It all depends. We'll see. Right. Let's go back. Right. So let me find that video. Now, I'm not going to do the whole, the whole conspiracy theory of if Elvis is dead. I do find all of that ridiculous. I'm not going to do it. There's a lot of people that really try to go out of their way to make sure they can prove Elvis died from a drug overdose. And there are, serious unknown circumstances. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm no expert. I've watched loads of Dr. Nick interviews and other interviews, about there's a small autopsy that was released, like a mini autopsy. Yeah. We know that the main autopsy is out, I think, in 2027. Who knows why? Vernon decided to seal it for 50 years. Who knows? But you get these people that piece all different information together. I can't remember his name. I'll have a look. And what amazes me, let me find it so I can explain what I'm talking to you about. Now, I don't believe any of it. I do believe that there was a mixture of prescribed medication and a heart attack, that led to Elvis's death, and very serious stress caused by the divorce settlement, by the Memphis Mafia book. I think a very complicated relationship in the end, because I don't think things were right between him and Ginger, even though I've got nothing bad to say about Ginger in the way of she was a very innocent girl, 21, yeah, out of her depth, really shouldn't have been there. Even the interview she gives, I always just think you weren't old enough to understand, thrown into this world of Elvis Presley with the Memphis Mafia, a very unwell man, a very sick man, but also a very famous man, a very emotional man, going through hell in 1977. And Ginger's there in the thick of it. Does anyone think she really understood what was happening? Did she know the life that she had walked into? I just think the whole thing was probably quite overwhelming for her. So when I listen to Ginger Alden, yeah, she's not streetwise, is she? I find her quite. She could have been 17, couldn't she? She just wasn't worldly. She hadn't had enough life experiences to understand what she had walked into, this crazy world of Elvis and all the history that led up to their meeting, and everything that Elvis was into, the Memphis Mafia were into, all the Vegas stuff, obviously Graceland, I just find the whole thing was a bit too much. So then when I found this, let's see if I can get it up, guys. When I was doing the walk, yeah, here it is, right. Now, I'll just show you the beginning of it. Now, I want you to know, guys, I don't believe a word of it. They call it the Elvis cover-up. You may have seen, you've probably seen it before. It's quite old. I'll show you the introduction, and then I'll show you some of the different interviews. The thing I like about it is quite well-known people like Ginger Alden, one of the Stanley brothers. I think even Dr. Nick is in it. There's people talking about the autopsy. Now, I don't believe a word of it about this cover-up, but I do think that the interviews of quite well-known people that were in Elvis's life are important. And many of you talk about Ginger Alden. Many of you talk about, all right, Jane, you know it. Many of you talk about Linda Thompson. I had someone messaging me. Is it Linda that's sending me a book? Linda Cudden. Let's have a look. Linda, are you there? Someone's sending me a book. Sorry, a few of you guys now are sending me a book. And some of you have got some very strong views about Linda Thompson, that she's done some quite bad things, that she said some quite horrendous things about Elvis. But she also has, let me just turn that off. She also has people that think she's great, that love the romance she had with Elvis. We know they were together for the first year, most days. And then after that, Elvis, I don't know, because there's many different versions, lost a bit of interest, and eventually it just sort of fizzled out. There's financial stuff, isn't there? There's stuff to do with where she lived. But even with Ginger, there was complications, wasn't there, with the parents still living in a property. It's just all very messy. Now, I think most of the girlfriends have said things they didn't need to say. So I'm not anti-Ginger. I'm not anti-Linda Thompson. But they have made mistakes. They have said things they shouldn't have said. Some of the things I don't like, when they're talking about Elvis binge eating, at the way Elvis took his medication, I just think, come on, guys, keep things private. Keep things to yourself. So let's play the introduction to this. I'll quickly read your comments. I just saw a video where someone is claiming that Joe Esposito said there was a suicide note beside Elvis's. Yeah, and I've heard about that. Crystal, it's just sad that people make up these things. Let's have a look. That was Stacy. Jane says it would have been good if that was true, but I don't believe he would let Lisa go through that. There's no way Elvis committed suicide. No chance. He absolutely worshipped Lisa Marie. No way. And one of the things, I just watched the Mike Stone interview. And by the way, he talks rubbish. But one of the big things he did say is that the most important thing in Elvis's life was Lisa Marie. We know that. But he really says that when he was with Priscilla for 4.5 years, he says that he knew all that mattered was Lisa Marie. Lisa Marie was the top for Elvis. Nothing was more important. And I know this. And I'll tell you why I know this from my opinion. He gave in to all of Priscilla's demands. No matter what Priscilla wanted, she always got it. And I've always believed that the reason Elvis was so soft with Priscilla, in the end, the second divorce settlement was brutal. He gave in because he was worried about losing some of his rights to see Lisa Marie. He was worried that Priscilla would stop him seeing the most important thing in his life. So he just give. We know that in the end, Elvis, when it came to money, was like, oh, I'll do another tour. I'll do another tour. I'll make, he would throw the money away to get what he wants. And I think, in my opinion, that spending a fortune to make sure that he still saw Lisa Marie wasn't a problem for him. So there's no way I think Elvis was suicidal. Now, did he have massive mood swings? Of course. Don't forget, he was on the different types of medication he was on. And I don't know them. I'm no medical expert. But it was obviously there was many medications that were to ease his discomfort, his constipation, his twisted colon, his hypertension, many other things, glaucoma. But he also, we know that he was on sedatives, sleeping tablets, uppers, come on, we know. He was on a mixture of things. So his mood swings would have been all over the place. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to play a bit of this. Now, please don't judge me. I'm not trying to make Elvis look bad. I'm trying to show you how silly this is. And then we'll jump forward and listen to Ginger Alden and the Stanley brother. Yeah. It just shows that these people, even Ginger Alden, because this would have been filmed not long after Elvis died. Now, Ginger Alden is very highly respected by a lot of Elvis fans. They really feel, he could have married her. They were engaged. He was planning on having children with her. She seems so lovely. Many people think that because obviously she got married, didn't she? Quite soon, then had a normal life. And then it's only since her husband died that she's been writing a book, doing these interviews around the world. She comes across lovely, but I don't want to bash Ginger. She was doing things for money after he died. After Elvis died, there's a movie on YouTube. You can look it up. She plays the girlfriend of like a singer. Look it up, guys. It's not very good, but she looks very young and beautiful in it. And this interview I came across accidentally. Now, she must have been asked to be involved in this interview, in this stupid thing that's called the Elvis cover-up. She would have got paid for it. So these sort of things disappoint me. But anyway, let's just listen to the introduction first.
buying his records, seeing his movies.
Right, it's not very loud, so you've got to listen.
The news came from Nashville of a charge against Elvis Presley's personal physician, accused by the Tennessee State Board of Medical Examiners of indiscriminately prescribing uppers, downers, and pain-killing drugs that Elvis Presley consumed in large quantities. For months, Geraldo Rivera has been investigating this story, and because of its startling nature, we're devoting our entire hour tonight to Geraldo Rivera's special 2020 report on the man known as the king of rock and roll. Geraldo.
Thank you. The king he was.
Right, let me just... now, I've watched things that Geraldo has done. I don't know what you guys' views on him are. He's obviously American. I'm from Britain. He means nothing to me. I think he was quite famous with you guys in the 70s and 80s. He likes headline-grabbing, sensationalist type stories. Yeah? Was he a good guy or not? Yeah, and Stacey, you said you got angry when you watched it, but it's not the topic why I'm showing you this. It's the people that were in it. I'm like, this is what shocked me. Let me just go to Ginger. Right.
And Ginger Sunderland. I'd like to say hello to my girlfriend Ginger Sunderland. Hello, Ginger. It's not for her.
After Elvis died, were you told what he had died from?
Well, all of us had heard at the same time that it was a heart attack.
Do you believe in your own mind right now that alone caused his death?
Right. In the very beginning, I did. I just, I think it was Elvis's time to go. So I think he took him. But then again, in my mind, there are a lot of unanswered questions.
Our investigation of the death begins with a reconstruction of the last 12 hours of Elvis Presley's life. Like many people in show business,
So I'm not going to go into that, even though it's probably interesting. I'm not going to get drawn into this gentleman's way of making money. Ultimately, why is he doing that? He wants to get viewings, be famous around the world. It's a coup, isn't it? It's a coup. It's like, yes, look at me. Yeah. But especially back then, 1979, it would have made him extremely famous, a lot of money. It's all about money. Now, this is what I say to you guys. Why did Ginger Alden, who speaks so highly now of Elvis, talks about how he was upbeat, looking forward to the future, how they were looking forward to this wedding at Christmas, yeah? And, that he was getting better. She'd never seen him eat a peanut butter, jelly, and banana sandwich. Why, she tries to say, Elvis was portrayed incorrectly by all the books, that he was nothing like. But then she's there making money from that, on that show. Why? Why did she make that silly movie? Yeah. Now, this show today that we've got isn't about Ginger Alden. I'm just trying to pick out people and go, there's so many people that have cashed in on Elvis. People that we think were good to him, that spoke well of him. Yeah. But then they're in these stupid, silly programs. Yeah. She's about money to her family sued the estate, and she was bitter per Memphis newspaper from February 1978. They banned her from Graceland. We many of these comments, like Crystal, I've read all about that, and you guys now will tell me some more things. Stacey, I definitely think she got paid to do that, 100%. I just don't get it. These people that plead their undying love, even Ginger Alden has written a book, which I think is quite a sweet book. Over 40 years later, she's now, or has been, going around the world doing these interviews, proud of the fact that she waited till her husband passed and then decided to write a book, that she kept a diary of all the events. And now just sort of speaks very highly of Elvis. Wherever she goes, she has personal appearances and autographs and pictures and all the rest of it. Painting herself really as one of his best girlfriends, the girlfriend that he intended to marry, that he intended to have children with, because she clearly says we were going to have kids, we were going to get married. Yeah? Now, don't forget, I'm not comparing her to Priscilla Elvis. I'm not comparing her to Priscilla. What I'm trying to say is, and I'm not just doing this live stream about Ginger. What I'm trying to say is that why so many? Why so many? Let's go to the next person in that show. I'm not going to watch the interviews. I'm just going to jump forwards. Right, here we go.
With a dentist named Lester Hoffman. Accompanied by his fiancée Ginger Alden, his cousin Billy Smith, and longtime friend Charlie Hodge, Elvis drove out of Graceland, his famous home in Memphis, Tennessee. The next day, August 16th, was the scheduled beginning of another concert tour, and Elvis wanted to get his teeth cleaned and 2 fillings replaced before he went out on the road.
We returned back to Graceland at about 1:30, and Elvis and I went upstairs, and Elvis turned on the television in his room to relax for a little while. Then Elvis started talking about his tour and started talking about our wedding plans and about announcing our engagement at his Memphis concert. Then it was about 4 o'clock, and I asked Elvis if he still wanted to play racquetball, which he mentioned playing earlier, and he said yes. Elvis got in touch with Billy Smith, and Billy and his wife Joe came up at about 4:30. We went down to play racquetball.
Let me just
Earlier, and he said yes to our engagement at his Memphis.
right. Now let me just. I want to say one more thing here, guys. Now she says that Elvis talks about announcing their engagement. So, does anyone believe that Elvis actually was going to announce their engagement? Does anyone know? Did Elvis ever announce the engagement? Ever? Because this is what I think when I watch these old interviews of Ginger and other people, other girlfriends. Oh, Elvis was going to do this. Elvis was going to do that. Oh, he was going to announce our engagement. Now, Elvis isn't here to say, well, that ain't true. Yeah. Elvis isn't here to go, oh, actually, yeah, I was going to announce it. Elvis isn't here to say, oh, yes, we were going to get married at Christmas. I think, she uses these interviews, this opportunity, because the press are very interested in Ginger, still are to this day. She was his last girlfriend, even though isn't it true that he was also seeing Kathy? Is that right? But my point is this. She knows the whole world are interested in her because she was the last girlfriend. She was with him the night he died, even though she was in another bed. And I know that you guys have very strong views. Why didn't she wake up? So I think this is just my opinion for entertainment purposes, that she uses these little interviews, these weird programs, because that is a weird program, yeah, to tell her story, to quickly throw in the bits that matter to her. So he was going to announce, because she doesn't have to say he was going to announce the engagement at the next show, whatever it was. She doesn't have to say that. She throws that in. She's telling a story about Elvis, but she has to throw in, oh, and we were going to do this, and we were going to do that. Right, come on. Dogs are here. Come on. Right, so let's just play it and listen. Let's listen to it again when she talks about the engagement.
Let's start talking about his tour and start talking about our wedding plans and about announcing our engagement at his Memphis concert. Then it was about 4 o'clock, and I asked Elvis if he still wanted to play racquetball, which he mentioned playing earlier, and he said yes. Elvis got in touch with Billy Smith, and Billy and his wife Joe came up at about 4:30. We went down to play racquetball.
Let me let the dog out.
So Elvis really seemed like he was in a good mood. It was about 6 o'clock when we went back into Graceland. At about 6:30, Elvis called downstairs for Ricky Stanley to bring up medication to help him get to sleep because he was so nervous about. He was kind of keyed up before starting a tour. So
I want to go back, guys, because the dogs.
we went back into Graceland. He was in a good mood. He played racquetball for a little while, and then went and played the piano. It was about 6 o'clock when we went back into Graceland. At about 6:30, Elvis called downstairs for Ricky Stanley to bring up his packet of medication to help him get to sleep because he was so nervous about. He was always kind of keyed up before starting a tour. So Ricky brought it up. Elvis took his packet of medication and started reading a book on psychic energy then. He thought that would help him fall asleep. Then I fell asleep. So at about 8 o'clock, I woke up because Elvis was restless, saying that he just couldn't sleep. So he called downstairs for Ricky again, and Ricky came up and brought up another packet of medication.
A second packet.
Right. Elvis took that, and then I went back to sleep. The third time, I was awakened again. Elvis was starting to get up, saying that he still couldn't sleep. He took the book on psychic energy with him, and he started toward the bathroom door. And I said, "No, don't fall asleep." And he turned and smiled at me and said, "Oh, okay, I won't." Then he went to the bathroom. I went back to sleep, and I slept until 2 o'clock. At that time, I rolled over and I looked at the clock, and it said 2 o'clock then, and the bathroom door was still shut. So at that time, I went in and I knocked on the door, and no one answered. So I opened the door, and that was when I saw Elvis.
According to an investigator for the medical examiner's office, the body was...
Okay, well I think we've heard that 1,000 times, haven't we? Heard that. I just hear that she wants to say that he wanted to announce the wedding, they're engaged, and he wants to announce the wedding. I just see that. Yeah, the rest is just money making. Yeah, so let's try and let's move forward. Go past all the rubbish. Let's see. Let's just see. Now the Stanley brother here. None of us are going to like this, but I do think we should play it because obviously he's changed his tune, hasn't he? This Stanley. I can't. Is it Billy? I can't. Tell me the Stanley brother's name. He's changed his tune. He's regrets saying these things. Yeah. Let's listen to him.
Decided to track down some of the people who knew Elvis best. David Stanley was his stepbrother.
David, that's it.
David also worked at Graceland as a security man and personal aide to Elvis.
Listen to me, David. This is very important. You personally witnessed Elvis Presley abusing drugs on many, many occasions, almost daily.
3 times a week. I'd work a day, Ricky'd work a day, 2 other guys would work. So it's about 2 to 3 times a week.
But every time you were on duty?
Every time.
Every day?
Every day. Last 2 years of Elvis's life, it was every day.
What would Elvis do if he didn't get the drugs he wanted?
He'd get upset sometimes. We were in Vegas one time, and we were there for 8 weeks, and Elvis was getting his drugs, but it got to a point to where his doctor wanted to shut him off in Vegas, and we couldn't reach the doctor anymore. So he jumped up on the table one day, and he pulled out his .45, and he says, "I'll buy a goddamn drugstore if I have to." He says, "I'm going to get what I want." He says, "You people better realize that either you're with me or against me. Either you take it or I'll buy your plane ticket home."
Why didn't you stop him?
I tried on different occasions to stop Elvis. When I saw him take something that I thought he shouldn't be taking or taking too much of something. And on the different times he would say, I don't understand. That he would say, "I need it. I don't understand." And when I first started dating Elvis, I just turned 20 at the time, and no one ever told me anything about what to expect, how the group was, or anything like that. I had to learn everything on my own. And the people that had been around Elvis for all these years, when I saw Elvis take something, which was mainly before he would go to sleep, I thought to myself, well, it must not really be harmful if it's prescribed. And if these people over the years, if Elvis is still doing it, then it must not really be very harmful for him.
Elvis had a serious drug problem. Raul was very serious. The reason I can say is because I used to have a drug problem, we've discussed. And I would say it was very, very bad. And We knew if it continued, that something like this would happen. We knew it would just be a matter of time.
Rick Stanley, another of Elvis's stepbrothers, was working at Graceland on the night Elvis died. Were you the person who filled the prescription at Baptist Memorial?
Yes, I was.
What was it?
It was Dilaudid.
Dilaudid, a very powerful morphine-type drug.
Class A narcotic.
Then what did you do with it?
Well, I went back to Elvis's house, went upstairs, and gave it to him. Talked with him for a moment and left.
Who signed that prescription?
Dr. Nicopoulos.
What was in the second packet that you brought upstairs?
In the second packet were varieties of sleeping pills, Quaalude, some barbiturates, Seconal, Tuinal, Amortol, Valium, and a couple of Demerol tabs.
Approximately how many pills?
6 to 8 pills.
Was that common?
Yes, it was.
Did it happen every night that you were on duty?
Oh, yeah. Every night I was on duty. Elvis couldn't sleep without it.
W.S. Nash was the pharmacist on duty when Rick went to get the prescription filled at the Baptist Hospital Pharmacy. It was for Dilaudid, a powerful morphine-based narcotic.
My wife's out and my
Dilaudid
kids
is a
are out.
painkiller, but because the drug is so powerful and addictive, it's usually prescribed only in the most severe cases. And most certainly Elvis, who had had only 2 teeth filled that night,
Right.
had no real medicine.
So I'm not playing this to make Elvis out as a drug addict. What I'm trying to show you guys is there's many people that just not long after Elvis has passed that are just there for the money. The 2 Stanley brothers, even Ginger Oldham. Doesn't that surprise you guys? Many people defend Ginger Oldham, how much they like her, how lovely she is, how they definitely would have married one day and they were going to have kids. She was the right one for him. You'll be surprised. She has a massive fan base. Now, I don't hate Ginger Oldham. I don't want to bash her. She seems lovely. But she shouldn't have been getting tied up in these kind of programs. Even the movie that she was in just after Elvis died, which I think was only 1978, this movie, yeah? And you can find it on YouTube. All these people that we don't know. Now, you think these big companies are paying these people to do these interviews. How do we not know that some of what is being said is these people are not being paid to say it? We don't know, do we? We don't know what is true in any of this. None of it. Let me play a bit more.
Need for the drug. Mr. Nash, the druggist, is now retired, living in Kentucky, but he's still pained by the memory of Elvis's last prescription.
I pictured myself as a person dispensing the fatal dose that killed him, even though that the possibility is that had that been the only drug he had taken, it probably wouldn't have killed him. But in combination with others, I'm almost sure it did.
As indeed it did. At this point,
So let me just check your comments. So Elaine says, Ginger was so nice when I met her. She was young and naive, and she admitted that when she did the talk. She admitted what? So what I'm trying to say, I mean, I'm sure she's lovely, yeah? I'm sure her book's lovely. These are mistakes, guys. This is cash for words. Cash for words. Don't like it. Remember, as far as we're concerned, from her information, they were engaged and getting married and going to have kids one day, even though I dispute all of that. Do I think it was a real engagement? Don't know. Do I think they were going to get married? Probably not. Do I think Elvis was going to have kids with her? I doubt it. But I wasn't there. I don't know. Maybe you guys think you know different than me. But I just think Elvis had this little fling. He was probably infatuated with her, probably felt, how can I say it, a connection to Ginger. But from what we know, is it true, guys? He was already had his eye on a different girl. Is that right? Yeah? Is it Kathy? You guys tell me. Who was the other girl that he was getting ready to come on the tour with him? There was another girl, because I don't think Ginger wanted to go. Is that right? Please, you give me the information. I'm no expert. A lot of my facts I get wrong. Please tell me. The faith of Elvis. He spoke good things about Elvis as he gained a new perspective. This is Billy Stanley. Yes, I know he became a born again Christian. Yeah. Alicia Kerwin. That's it. Thank you, Stacey. Yeah. Wasn't she waiting for him? Yeah. So anyway, we'll carry on with this. I've got some other things to play. Let me just see who else we can find in this interview. Right, let's get Billy Stanley on again, yeah? Actually, do you know what? No, I'm not going to play him again. Let's get Dr. Nick on. Let's get Dr. Nick on. I don't want to play the Stanley brother again because he's just going to sit there and list all the medication that Elvis was taking. Now, I'll say this about Dave Stanley. Not once does he say that Elvis was sick, chronically unwell. He doesn't say one. I've watched all of this. He talks about the pills, the medication that Elvis was taking as if it was just to get stoned, just to get high. Yeah. He doesn't once say, oh, Elvis had bone cancer, glaucoma, twisted colon, serious constipation, serious insomnia, had no energy. So he needed a boost between shows because he was so overworked. His high blood pressure, hypertension, all the different chronic sicknesses that Elvis had, Dave Stanley doesn't mention one of them. He gives the impression that everything he took was just to get stoned, to get high. And that is what I don't like. Let me just read this. Alicia Kerwin was chosen for company only, but she was going to be a no-show in Portland, Maine. She was not interested in Elvis and was only meeting him to get car papers for him. Well, I'd need proof of that, Elaine. Yeah. You know, things like that. We need to know how you would know that. Yeah. Elvis needed someone with him at night because he could not keep himself safe. I know about that. He would fall asleep whilst eating, but didn't he have a full-time nurse by then? Yeah. What was her name? Marianne, and the other one, what's her name? Tash. Oh, what's her name? I've got a name now. Tash something. Yeah. A little bird told me. Remember, Elaine, we can't just be on hearsay. We need, right, I think this, and this is why. We need, it was written here, it was on this interview. It has to be some kind of substance to the information we're giving out. Most of what Tish Henley, and I don't even think that was even her real name. But most of the things I say, somewhere I've read it, somewhere, like it, you know, I hate reading books, but an interview or it's something that has been sent to me. It's always something. Yeah. Let's have a look. Don't get me wrong, guys. I get things wrong all the time. Right. Let's have a look.
Closest to him was a Memphis physician named George Nicopolis, known by the Presley entourage simply as Dr. Nick.
The records indicate that, especially in the last year of his life, he prescribed certain medications to Elvis Presley in quite extraordinarily large amounts. Why?
I can't comment on that, and I don't believe that's true.
Well, the records we have, Doctor, and I'll say this as gently as I possibly can, indicate that from January 20th, 1977 until August 16th, 1977, the day he died, you prescribed to Elvis Presley, and the prescriptions are all signed by you, over 5,000 Schedule II narcotics and or amphetamines. That comes out to something like 25 per day.
I don't believe that.
Well,
What do you think, guys?
You'd like to refresh your recollection on, or is it something that
He looks like he's lying.
2 days ago, the state of Tennessee initiated proceedings to suspend.
Let me just. Actually, do you know what? I haven't watched that clip before. That was a very close-up clip with his. Do you know that Superman's dad? He looks like Superman's dad. But Marlon Brando, yeah. So right. I like that. It beams right up into his face. Like, did you give Elvis 25 tablets a day? Did you prescribe Elvis 5,000 tablets? He's like, oh, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. He's like, he's looking all around the room, looking at the floor, doesn't want to look at the camera. Now, we know he did it, didn't he, guys? From that, do you think he did it? Elaine, you're on the fence. Come on. Come on, let's play that again. Oh, my God. Let's just go on. That is, now, don't get me wrong, guys. Before I play it again, Elaine, you know I love you. I'm messing about, yeah? Before I play it, I want you to understand that I do think Dr. Nick genuinely loved Elvis. They were very close. I also know that Elvis loaned a lot of money to Dr. Nick. So Dr. Nick couldn't really say no to Elvis. Yeah? Quite a lot of money. Over 100,000, I heard. Maybe you guys know the amount. I've seen the interviews where Dr. Nick says that he looked at Elvis like a brother. Yeah? So I'm not saying that Dr. Nick didn't like Elvis. I don't think Dr. Nick was trying to harm Elvis. We know about the placebos. He would switch the medication with placebos to try and reduce the amount that Elvis was taking. I know Dr. Nick was trying to help Elvis. I also believe that he had an impossible challenge case, impossible patient. Dr. Nick was never going to save Elvis. Yeah. Now, do I think Dr. Nick was part of the reason Elvis died? Probably because I think Dr. Nick was probably too soft and said yes too much. Also, Elvis had other ways of getting medication. Yeah. Even sometimes it's said, even off the dealers, even buying some of these drugs off the dealers, it's been said. I don't know this. So I'm not just trying to trash Dr. Nick, even though I have good and bad views about Dr. Nick, but he's lying in this, in my opinion. Let's just read your comments. Yeah, he's up against it. Yep, other doctors were prescribing it. That's right. As far as what I've read, yeah. He was probably killing him with kindness. Doctor intentions were good. I don't think killing him. Hi, Finola. I'm not going to say he was killing him, but I'll say he was so soft, he was taking a chance, wasn't it? It was high risk. Oh, I'll give it him to keep him happy. I hope it'll be okay. It'll be all right. Yeah, kidding himself a little bit. Yeah, Pat, I agree. I've always said this. Elvis had serious pain, serious discomfort, couldn't sleep, couldn't wake up, horrible constipation, the worst kind of headaches, horrible glaucoma. He needed loads of pills. He needed a lot of medication and steroids and uppers and downers and sleeping tablets. Come on, sleeping tablets were pretty normal and still are now. Yeah? Now, he said 25 pills a day. I've been told he was taking 40 a day. Yeah? I can't remember where I read it. So, Dr. Nick's book, multiple doctors prescribed meds to Beverly Hills. Yeah, I agree. And if this interview said it was pretty normal, there was a culture with doctors of over-prescribing. Yeah? People didn't know the side effects. People didn't really understand the damage these pills can do. It was quite normal in the 70s for doctors to prescribe in this way. They thought there was a pill was an answer for everything. A pill could fix everything. Yeah? Let's watch Dr. Nick again.
Known by the Presley entourage simply as Dr. Nick.
The records indicate that, especially in the last year of his life, he prescribed certain medications to Elvis Presley.
Now let's watch his face,
quite
guys.
Extraordinarily large amounts. Why?
I can't comment on that, and I don't believe that's true.
Well, the records we have, Doctor, and I'll say this as gently as I possibly can, indicate that From January 20th, 1977 until August 16th, 1977, the day he died, you prescribed to Elvis Presley, and the prescriptions are all signed by you, over 5,000 Schedule II narcotics and or amphetamines. That comes out to something like 25 per day.
I don't believe that.
Well, is it something that you'd like to refresh your recollection on, or is it something that you deny?
I deny.
2 days ago, the state of Tennessee initiated proceedings to suspend or revoke.
Right, we'll watch we'll watch that as well. The bit where they initiate proceedings, but a very uncomfortable. I actually almost feel sorry for him. It's like he's going to start crying or something, but it's like he wants to get out of the room. Yeah, very awkward, very awkward. Even the interviewer is like, you know, I'll say this gently, because he can see he's almost at a point of turn this camera off. I'm not doing this. He's just on the fine edge. And the truth is, as much as he loved Elvis, and he had this very unusual thing where Elvis was loaning him money and he worked for Elvis, he couldn't say no to Elvis. I really believe that. Couldn't say no to him. So let's listen to the rest of it.
You'd like to refresh your recollection on, or is it something that you deny?
I deny.
2 days ago, the state of Tennessee initiated proceedings to suspend or revoke Dr. Nick's license to practice medicine, principally because of the way he cared for Elvis Presley.
We have charged him with unprofessional conduct, gross incompetence, gross ignorance, gross negligence, and gross malpractice concerning his dispensing of narcotic substances. Specifically, we have charged him with dispensing, prescribing, and issuing narcotic and controlled substances not in good faith to relieve pain and not for a legitimate medical reason.
Who was the patient?
Well, there were 16 different patients we have charged him with concerning these particular drugs we talked about.
Is Elvis Presley?
Elvis Presley is one of these individuals.
Was his case the single most glaring case?
Without a doubt, Elvis Presley, from my experience, was issued more Schedule II uppers, downers, amphetamines than any other individual I have seen.
This is the worst case of overprescribing or of indiscriminate prescribing that I have ever seen in my time as an investigator with the state of Tennessee.
Elvis wasn't Dr. Nick's only patient in the entourage. Marty Lacker was Elvis's bookkeeper and the best man at his wedding to Priscilla. Medical authorities were told how Dr. Nick prescribed Lacker more than 13,000 pills in less than 4 years, an average of about 10 a day.
They just looked at the records and asked if I was alive. And he said yes. And asked if I was still taking them, and he said no. And asked how I got off them, and he said, well, he withdrew from, by himself. And so the next question they asked if I was in a mental institution. And he said no, thank God. It was that bad, Marty. Sure it was.
The state's complaint against Dr. Nicholas lists 16 patients.
So don't forget, it's funny because someone messaged me today about Marty Lacker, defending him, saying that he was a real good guy and that he was really good to Elvis. So even Marty Lacker, who's known as a good guy, he's still exposing things about Elvis that are embarrassing to Elvis, his mate, his best friend. So none of these guys are innocent. Now, I have no doubt that Marty Lacker loved Elvis. Yeah. In fact, all of the Memphis Mafia. But they still, in their own way, betrayed him. I really believe that. Yeah. They said things they should never have said. Now, some were worse than others. Yeah. I don't like the way Lamar Fike talks about Elvis. It really bugs me. Lamar Fike, the way he talks about Elvis is derogatory, disgusting. That what also bothers me is when Lamar Fike is saying these things, the other Memphis Mafia that are sat with him are nodding their heads, agreeing. So they're guilty of it as well, guys. Even the ones that you class as your favorites. I'm not even going to say names because every time I say the name, I get told off. Even the ones that you class as the favorites, they are guilty of going along with making Elvis look bad. Yeah? How would Elvis feel? These kind of conversations being said in public around the world for money, because these guys are being paid. How would Elvis feel? Yeah? How would Elvis feel? Marty Lacker's on this program, this stupid program that embarrasses, shames Elvis. And it's his best friends that he spent years with, that he grew up with. These men started as young men and became middle-aged men, as Red West said, with Elvis. Elvis gave them everything they could ever dream of, gave them the most magnificent, beautiful life you can imagine. They mixed with the most famous people in the world, the best holidays, the best cars, the best food, everything good. And now, a couple of years after he's died, they're slagging him off, calling him a druggie. It ain't right, guys. True or not, it ain't right.
And you said no, thank God.
It was that bad, Marty.
Sure it was.
The state's complaint against Dr. Nicopolis lists 16 patients to whom Dr. Nick was allegedly overprescribing narcotic drugs, including performer Jerry Lee Lewis and Dr. Nick's own daughter, Chrissy. But the list of narcotic drugs he prescribed to Elvis Presley just during the last 7 months of Elvis's life is quite simply incredible, averaging about 25 narcotic pills a day.
Right. Let's pause that. I mean, that is interesting. Now, I want to read Lisa's comment because I like Lisa's comment. I can't imagine exposing such a personal and embarrassing thing about loved one or cherished friend. So info needs to be taken to the grave. Some info needs to be taken to the grave. Instead, Elvis was sold out for money. It just doesn't make sense. And no, it doesn't. Because would we do it? Guys, would we do it? Would we, if we knew some, what's the word, unsavory details about a very close friend that we had grown up with, spent our lives with, would we tell people? And what about the public? Would we make it public news? Never. Never. A good friend doesn't do it. These guys are doing it all day long for decades. For decades. On many programs, many biography documentaries. It's not right, guys. It's not right. And I'm actually a bit gutted that Ginger Alden's even in that. Aren't you guys surprised that Ginger Alden participated in that? Because I am, guys. Right, let's just go forward a little bit. Let's just see if there's anyone in. I'm only going to play it if it's someone in here that I think would be interesting. Right. Is that Dr. Nick? Let's have a look. No. Right, let's just play this a little bit.
Any doctor that said no to Elvis Presley? Not that I know of. And I was around him for a long, long time. Not that I know of. Nobody.
I think he said, did any doctor say no to Elvis? Right.
All we knew when we began this investigation was that many of the people closest to Elvis Presley simply did not believe he really died of a heart attack. Now, the first break in this story came when we obtained a report on the drugs found in Elvis's body at the time of his death. They were all prescription drugs, legal medicine. So we started looking for the licensed doctors who supplied Elvis whatever drug he wanted, whenever he wanted it.
Were there any doctors that said no to Elvis Presley? Not that I know of. And I was around him for a long, long time. Not that I know of. Nobody hardly said no to Elvis Presley.
Our investigation uncovered willing doctors in Los Angeles and in Las Vegas. But it was in Elvis's hometown of Memphis that the evidence began pointing to Dr. George Nicopolis. Dr. Nick was Presley's personal physician on and off for 11 years. He was a member of the inner circle of the entourage that surrounded and helped isolate Elvis inside the walls of Graceland and under a mountain of prescription medicine.
You prescribed to Elvis Presley, and the prescriptions are all signed by you. Over 5,000 Schedule II narcotics and or amphetamines.
that comes out to something like 25 per day.
I don't believe that.
Well, is it something that you'd like to refresh your recollection on, or is it something that you deny?
I deny.
Last September's interview happened just days before the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners began proceedings to revoke or suspend Dr. Nick's license to practice medicine. According to the board, the doctor had prescribed more than 12,000 narcotic pills and injections to Presley in just the last 20 months of his life. In his own defense, Dr. Nick explained how he cared for Elvis.
You can't imagine how big a nightmare this was for me. I mean, I tried to get psychiatric help. I tried to get him to go to sleep clinics. I tried to get him to get help from some other sources, and it was always either we'll do better or something. He just would not do it.
Two facts were confirmed during the week-long hearing. First, that Elvis had been a medical drug addict, hospitalized at least 3 times for detoxification. The second thing concerned Dr. Nick. It became clear that he led 2 lives. To most of his patients, he was a conscientious traditional family doctor. But to Elvis and to others who testified at the hearing, Dr. Nick was the source, the drug supplier.
So, Dr. Nicopolis, your license will be suspended for a period of 3 months, and the board will observe your activities in your practice for a period of 3 years.
Found guilty of 10 counts of overprescription, Dr. Nick's medical license was suspended for 3 months. He got off easily, but his legal problems were just beginning. A Shelby County grand jury began hearing testimony. Between February 20th and May 16th, 36 witnesses, most of them relatives, employees, and close friends of the late singer, pieced together the melancholy story of the last days of his life. Among the witnesses were Ginger Alden, who discovered his body on August 16, 1977. Marty Lacker, best man in Presley's wedding to Priscilla, who testified as to his own addiction at the hands of Dr. Nick. Stepbrothers David and Ricky Stanley, who told the grand jury of Elvis's addiction. And Dr. Eric Muirhead, chief pathologist at Baptist Hospital in Memphis, who presented the autopsy report to the jurors and told them that Elvis had died of a combination of drugs. The investigators for the state of Tennessee screened all 40 hours of medical board hearings. In addition, they traveled to Los Angeles and Las Vegas, obtaining voluntary testimony from some other Presley intimates, like longtime manager Colonel Tom Parker, and from Linda Thompson, who went with Elvis after his divorce from Priscilla. Last Friday, the grand jury handed down its indictment. It accuses Dr. Nicopolis of unlawfully prescribing prescription drugs to Elvis Presley and to 10 other people, including another legend of rock and roll, Jerry Lee Lewis. In the case of both Jerry Lee and Elvis, there are actually 2 counts in the indictment. District Attorney General Hugh Stanton.
The second count alleges that those 2 individuals were addicted to controlled substances. It names the controlled substances, and it says that he continued to prescribe or did prescribe to them, not in a good faith effort to cure their addiction.
So almost 3 years after the death of Elvis Presley, his longtime personal physician has finally been indicted, in part because of the way he cared for his famous patient. If convicted, Dr. Nicopolis would face between 2 and 10 years in prison for each of the 14 counts. And ABC News has learned that the prosecution feels the case against him is airtight. For instance, in April and again in July of 1977, Dr. Nick's medical bag was reported stolen. After the contents had been taken, the bags were recovered by the police. Before returning the bag to the doctor, the police apparently copied down his schedules for dispensing drugs to Elvis Presley. In other words, from the doctor's own notes, found inside his own medical bag, the state knows exactly what he gave to Elvis and when. Deborah Richardson worked briefly for Dr. Nick. Deborah, was there ever an occasion when you had access to Dr. Nicopolis' office when you saw drugs in there that were earmarked for Graceland, Elvis Presley's home here in Memphis?
Yes, I went into his office one day, and there was a grocery bag on his desk, about this wide, about this tall. It was on his desk, and a piece of paper was stapled to the bag. I had Graceland went across it, and I looked in it, and it was pharmaceutical samples.
And you can't, that's almost finished now. You can't ignore the fact that because Elvis, Dr. Nick becoming Elvis's main doctor, that it didn't make it easy for him. That made it easy for him, didn't it? The truth is, Dr. Nick, because he was a doctor, could feed Elvis. And Elvis, I do believe he was addicted to some of his prescribed medications. I do think Elvis abused some of his medications. I also think he needed many of them as well. I really believe that Elvis really was in a lot of pain and discomfort, had a lot of serious medical problems that he needed many of these prescribed medications. But when it's that easy and it's on tap and you're in pain and you're desperate and you can see no way out and your only answer is a pill and you're in severe pain, you're going to abuse them, aren't you? You're going to. And don't forget, they made you feel different. They made you feel better temporarily. Like a temporary ease of the hell that Elvis was going in. Let's just place this last few seconds.
Pharmaceutical samples heading toward Graceland. About how filled was that big grocery bag?
About half full.
Half full of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
The indictment of Dr. Nick is the end of just part of the story. There is still what we call the Elvis cover-up. It is the usual practice in criminal cases like this.
I'm not going to go down the road of the Elvis cover-up. I actually found that quite interesting. I'll tell you why. Because initially it was to talk about Ginger Alden and the fact that she's got involved in things just after Elvis died for money, which is disappointing. I'm not surprised that Dave Stanley and his brother did that as well. But when it started giving out this very good information about Dr. Nick and the law, the different lawsuit type problems happening, it's quite very interesting. I learned a lot, actually. I learned a lot. Many of these things I've read before, but it's all put together in a very good format. Now, what I want to do, guys, I want to carry on the Dr. Nick thing. I stored this earlier. See if I can find it. I found a few interviews with Dr. Nick, because don't forget, Dr. Nick always says Elvis was a very close friend of his. Elvis was like a brother to him. Yeah. So I found a few interviews. Let's listen to a couple of them. Yeah.
This morning, Doctor.
Now, I've watched this one before, guys. It's very obvious that the interviewer doesn't like Dr. Nick in this, but I still find it quite interesting. Now, it's to do with Dr. Nick at some point decides that he's going to write a book. His reason for writing the book is, he loves Elvis and he wants to dispel all the lies said about him, and he wants to show the world how amazing Elvis was. Let's listen to what he says. Channel 13, Fox News.
All right, joining us this morning, Dr. George Nicopolis. Many people know him just as Dr. Nick, Elvis's personal physician. Doc, thanks for coming on this morning.
My pleasure.
He's joining us. First of all, he's written a book, but I want to ask you some questions before we get to that. Talk about your time with Elvis. The first time you met him, what were the circumstances?
I happened to be on call for the group of doctors that I worked for. It was on a weekend, and Elvis had been in town for about a week and had one of his wild hairs where he bought everybody that worked for him horses and trailers.
Right, 1 second, guys.
And he had a problem with riding for a week. He had a lot of soreness and actually he had saddle sores. He was trying to get out of going back to California to do a movie that was supposed to start.
So you treated him?
Right.
And then after that, he liked the relationship so much he became his personal physician? Or?
I think so. His doctor happened to be out of town that first time that I saw him, and he was living in California, and when he moved back to Memphis, I was became his personal physician.
Okay. When he died, a lot of people blame the prescription drugs. Is that what killed Elvis Presley?
No, drugs had nothing to do with his death.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing. that was proven and shown in my book from the toxicology studies that were done.
Did he have a drug dependency issue?
He only had a drug dependency issue one time after he came into Memphis real sick after receiving acupuncture from a physician out in California for 6 months. Well, he wasn't really getting acupuncture, he was getting shots of medications that he got addicted to.
Okay. And did you try to help him with his dependency?
Yeah, I got him in touch with the rehab people here in town that treat these things and got him off everything all together.
Were you there when they did the autopsy?
Yes, I was in the room with him.
A lot of people say this: Elvis is alive. That is obviously not possible if you were there for his autopsy. Why do people say he is?
I don't know. I've tried to figure that out. I guess that like all of us that loved him, we just didn't want to lose him. And I guess a lot of it is to do with making money and writing books.
Yeah, I've talked to some of those people who've written some of those books, and they have some eerie coincidences and things like that, and I guess they make a decent case. But if you were in the autopsy room when it was done, Dr. Nick, let me ask you about your book, Your Life with Elvis. What do you hope people will get from this book?
I wanted to get a feel of the kind of person that Elvis was and what he actually gave back to his fans and to music. He changed music, and I don't think it's really appreciated what he contributed towards this.
How close were you guys?
We were like we went to school together all our lives. I mean, we used to shoot marbles together or something. We just very close.
Did you go on some of the road trips?
I went on most of the road trips.
Is that right?
Yeah. Which caused a little dissension with my partners because they thought this was a vacation, and it wasn't really a vacation taking care of so many people.
Why did you decide to write this book now? Have you been working on it for a while? Or?
Well, I tried to write a book before several years after he died, and I hadn't read any of the other books, but they were brought up in preparation for some of my trials, and there was so much trash written, and his name was trash, and I just didn't like what was going on, and the publishers that I talked to wouldn't let me write the book the way I wanted to write the book. They wanted to sensationalize it and make it look like he was an addict, and I just want to set this record straight.
Okay, and you do that. And the King and Dr. Nick, what really happened to Elvis and me. You set the record straight in this book?
I think so.
Okay. Well, Dr. Nick, thanks for coming on. Good to talk to you.
My pleasure.
And we will be right back. This is Good Morning Memphis on Fox 13 on a Monday morning.
I love teasing Elaine. Louis, get back in your basket, Southerners. Southwest UK, Western Supermare, near Bristol. Go on, we're good here. And of course, Elaine is going to read that book. Yeah, I can imagine Elaine, a computer brain. You're going to win a world record, the Guinness Book of World Records, for the most books read. Right. Now, just to say something about the ending of that interview. Now, he waffles at the end. He says to him, he basically says to him, what is your reason for writing the book? Now, remember, the book is mainly going to be about all the medical problems. Yeah, maybe that they were on holiday together and the trips they went on together. I think he accompanied him on the bus trips going between the movie sets and stuff, onto the tours, on the aeroplanes, But he says, the reason I write the book is I don't think he's been appreciated. Does anyone agree with that? Even then, when that was done, say was that around 1980, Elvis was bloody appreciated. One thing that hasn't changed. Now, we know that people badmouth Elvis. They call him a drug addict, a pedophile. They call him loads of names. But one thing they've never stopped saying is how amazing he was, how talented he was, how beautiful he was, and how magnetic and the most charismatic personality. So when he says, "Oh, I don't think he was appreciated, and I want the world to know just how great he was," I'm like, they know, mate. They know. Why not say the real reason? The reason he's writing the book is because he wants to make some money because he's in trouble financially. That's the only reason he's there. There is no other reason. Did he love Elvis? Probably. Did he regret that Elvis died? Probably. But that man, I'm telling you now, guys, is there for the money. The money. No other reason. He's not there because he wants to show the world that Elvis was good. Right, yeah, let's put another one on.
Elvis called his personal physician Dr. Nick. And that was just about all I knew of their relationship until recently when I read the book, The King and Dr. Nick. As an Elvis fan and a lover of books, it was amazing how different my memories were from the facts. The book had such an eye-popping twist to how Elvis Presley died that I wanted to hear from Dr. Nick in person. He has had 2 strokes recently, back to back, but he did say yes. So we sat in the den of his East Memphis home that Elvis insisted he build and talked about the King and Dr. Nick, what really happened to Elvis and Dr. George Nicopolis. 35 years after Elvis died in 1977, the Vanderbilt Medical School doctor, known for his caring bedside manner and his cotton white hair, talks in quiet, heartbreaking measures about the death of Elvis Presley, more like he lost a son than a patient. The autopsy of the King of Rock and Roll was done fewer than 24 hours after his death.
I watched it.
You watched it?
I watched it. You know how hard that was.
They met on a house call at Presley's North Mississippi ranch. Elvis convinced him to travel around the country as his personal physician and as doctor to the road crew as well. Theirs was a closeness akin to family. Here they are in 1973, relaxing with family in Hawaii.
Never know how much I love you.
It was before the history-making concert Aloha from Hawaii. 4 years later, Elvis was dead.
Thank you.
It would be 22 years before Dr. Nicopolis wrote his account of how Elvis died. The stories might make you a bigger Elvis fan than before, either because of how hard Elvis worked for his fans behind the scenes, or his generosity and loyalty to friends and family. But there is also a section about Elvis's demons, both personal and medical. There were pills to sleep, pills for anxiety, and laxatives. Which ones did he need most?
I guess at different times he needed all those different pills. And it turned out that the meds had nothing to do with his death.
May of 1980, Dr. Nick was arrested and charged with overprescribing drugs to 11 patients, including Elvis Presley. Under oath, Dr. Nick admitted that he prescribed painkillers for Elvis' arthritis, heavy doses of laxatives, sleeping pills for his insomnia, and amphetamines for weight loss. But he also took drastic measures to manage his patients' dependence on medication. He and others testified that he moved a nurse to Graceland just to monitor and dispense Elvis meds.
I found out that we got into less trouble with him and medications and drugs if we kept them in our hands instead of giving them to him to take. He'd give you a good argument. I'm a patient. You don't treat other patients that way. You give them a script and you tell them, look.
Dr. Nick documented that he often used placebos instead of real drugs to help keep Elvis from mismanaging pills.
Before one show, I hooked him up with placebos. And he did the greatest show that he had ever done.
I'm just making a coffee, guys.
Show that he had ever done on the placebos.
Not very loud, is it?
I made a mistake by telling him this. And then he started having some questions about what I was giving him, whether I was giving him placebos or giving him the real things.
In 1981, Dr. George Nicopolis was found not guilty of all charges tied to the death of Elvis Presley. That didn't satisfy the national media. A cover-up was suggested. So another autopsy was ordered. This one was done by an experienced medical examiner in Dade County, Florida. Dr. Joseph Davis' verdict? The same as the Tennessee ME. Drugs did not kill Elvis Presley. He said there were only trace amounts found in his system. He added, quote, "It takes hours to die from drugs." The scene itself told what happened to Elvis, end quote. The infamous bathroom scene was shared in painstaking detail in Dr. Nick's book. When we come back, the medical discovery revealed at the autopsy that had it been caught earlier, Dr. Nick thinks it could have saved Elvis' life. Even after not one, but two autopsy reports that showed Elvis died of a heart attack from natural causes, and Dr. Nick was cleared of any criminal charges, the national media still insisted drugs were behind his death.
Yeah.
As described in the book, The King and Dr. Nick, Dr. Nicopolis tried in vain to save Elvis Presley August 16th, 1977, on the way to Baptist Hospital in the ambulance, and again at the hospital. He recalls what happened that night in the master bathroom at Graceland before the ambulance arrived.
He fell on the floor, but he was having a seizure then. His heart overexerted itself to be too fast. Maneuver of straining, which slows your heart down. You can sit there in your chair right now and just strain for a few minutes or less, and you can feel your pulse drop down.
Dr. Nick writes that watching the autopsy offered everyone in the room an instant explanation for why Elvis was sometimes bloated, why he found no relief even from heavy doses of laxatives. He says Elvis had a condition known as megacolon.
There are different causes for the megacolon. His cause, we don't think was hereditary. We feel like his was from a viral disease of the nervous system to the colon.
Dr. Nick says reports about the size of Elvis' colon were not exaggerated. Some reports say as many as 6 feet longer than the average human size, loaded with pounds and pounds of blockage.
Now, it was several times normal. How big around it was, how long it was. When you got a bag of cement sitting in your colon and you're trying to get rid of it, and it's like trying to pass a rock because the barium that was left in the colon 3 or 4 months should have been gone in 2 or 3 days. And food couldn't get through because of the barium was like concrete. It wouldn't move.
Dr. Nick is convinced that if he could have shared that story sooner, had he been allowed by the court or Elvis' family, he could have saved his career. Most important, he feels that if tests had been done that revealed the megacolon condition, he could have saved the life of the king of rock and roll.
It just hurts so bad to know how much time you devoted to this guy. And it wasn't for him to make money. It wasn't for him to...
What he was saying was, it makes him sad because he gave so much joy to so many people, and that's gone. And in 2013, it's a piece of cake.
All my life, I was told that Elvis died after a life of excess because of drugs, because of a hard life on the road, the rock and roll lifestyle.
And all of that, I mean, think about it. I mean, think about what we feel like on Saturday mornings after some weeks. It all, I'm not a physician, but I'm sure it all added to it. Elvis was given to excess. He laughed a lot. Sure. He loved hard. Instead of one antibiotic, the reason there was a nurse moved on to Graceland property was because he thought if one is good, I'll take 3 antibiotics. Right. So he had a nurse dispensing it. But he just says if he could have clipped that part of his colon out, he feels certain he would be alive today.
That's amazing.
And a doctor in Mississippi, University of Mississippi, the hospital there, is the one who called the neuropathy, the nerve damage to the colon. He gave it a name. I talked with Elvis' longtime friend, George Klein, who introduced Elvis to Dr. Nick, and he read the book and said, if you have any questions, it'll answer it. He said, I know this. When he was there, Elvis was in good health. When he wasn't, Elvis was not. He took the worst hit of everybody, lost his career, and almost lost everything else. Daryl, I recommend the book. And in the middle of it, you'll find out about the autonomic neuropathy.
He's Superman's dad.
Leave
him alone. Superman's dad.
That's a fascinating read.
It is.
I'm going to have to check that one out.
It is.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Right, guys. I'm gonna sign off and come back. Yeah, because I want to go on to a new topic. So I don't want to do the same topic on the same live stream. So I'm going to log out and log back in. Okay, guys? So we've had a brilliant live stream, basically all about Dr. Nick. So I want to be able to head the title of this, the topic of this live stream about Dr. Nick. So really, I'm going to end this, but I'm going to come straight back. I've just made a coffee. Yeah. You guys go and make a coffee. I'm going to literally come straight back 2 to 3 minutes. And then we are going to compare Piers Morgan's interview with Priscilla to old interviews. We're going to see the difference between the two, the Barbara Walters interview and some others. So I'll see you in 2 minutes. Okay, guys? Love you all. Hope you've enjoyed this. If you've liked it, please get me a coffee, guys. I love a coffee. Hit the coffee button in my YouTube page. See you in a minute, guys. 2 minutes.